Hi, my name is Elijah Jameson. I'm a 14-year-old teen living in Aurora, Illinois, and I go to a high school called West Aurora High School. And I'm responding to this due to my stepmother, who gave me the idea. Thanks to her. And it's more of a way to show how the world looks at teens, how teens look at the world, and how some of those views can change. One of the first things is, what assumptions do people make about teenagers, especially teen boys 14 to 17? And it's an ugly truth. People believe that all we do is we screw around, we do drugs, we get in trouble, and more or less we cause trouble for us and those around us. Not all of this is true, but in the sad cases, sometimes it is. Those cases are they're avoidable, but difficult. Some places, that's the social norm. Some places, it's what people think is the social norm, and that's what's wrong. Most of it is due to the next topic, which is pressures. There are many, many, many pressures in today's teenage society. For every boy, there's a pressure to be just like everyone else. You can't be creative, you can't be different. Most people who express their sexuality, they're pressured to do so, and they're pressured to hide if they don't. One thing some adults should understand about the life of a teenager is we understand you've gone through it. We understand that you have all been a teen at one point. And you always say, every adult says this, that they understand and they know how you feel. We don't understand that to the extent that you believe we do. We know that you guys were teenagers at one point, but because you're our parents, coaches, and adults in our lives, we don't believe it. We always look to you to be our strongest person and to guide us. And when you say that you had moments of weakness just like we come to you with, it's hard for us to believe. So teenagers, we may have it easy, but at the same time we have it difficult. Our entire life is based around what goes on around us. Without the help of outside pressure and outside afflictions, we don't cope very well. If we require other peers and teens in order to function, if we're put alone with no teens, we're not usually as happy. We love to have people our age. And next topic is hooking up, or going out, dating, finding time to be with a person that you have a crush on, that you like. Dating is a very awkward time for teenagers. Because, especially with our generation, dating does not mean the same thing it did. We don't go out and date. We stay in, we hang out with each other, we talk to each other, but we don't actually go anywhere. That's what's changed from now and 20 years ago. You guys would go out to the movies when you were kids. You guys would go to the mall. Not everybody can do that, but some people do. I personally am not one of those people. I prefer to stay at my house or at whoever I happen to be dating at the time's house, hang out with them, and do whatever the two of us want to do together. That comes to back to the assumptions. Some adults believe that, especially us boys from 14 to 17, are mindless, hormonal sex addicts. Well, that may be true of teens that you see on TV or in movies. It's not true of most teens that you will meet day to day. Most teens are deathly afraid of relationships and how they might end. Me being one of them. No teenage boy in their right mind is just going to accept sex without thinking about it. And there are boys that aren't in their right mind, and that's how that image was started of us. It's not exactly the most glorifying, it's not the best, it's not one I enjoy having. With hooking up comes all the buzz about the friend zone. The friend zone is, in my opinion, more the fear zone. If you are too afraid to make your own step up and to ask a girl out, that's how you get into the so-called friend zone. And the problems that happen there is you always feel that you cannot move along past your current relationship, and it can only move past your current relationship if you attempt to do so. In media, it's portrayed as a guy will ask a girl out and they say they just want to be friends, and that's the friend zone. And most guys fear this because, the way I see it, if a girl doesn't really like you, she should just say so. If she says, let's just be friends, she still gives you the hope that you could date her, even though if she doesn't want to, you never will. Which, in my opinion, is not a very nice thing to do, but if it can't be helped, it can't be helped. The next question is one I really wanted to talk about. It's how teens handle the feelings of rejection and how we deal with things when our feelings get hurt. And it's a tough subject for most teens, including myself, to talk about. Teen boys are conditioned not to share their feelings. Because if a boy shares his feelings with his peers, he's considered gay, or more vulgar terms, but we're conditioned not to show our feelings, not to share them. We're conditioned, you have to be a man, you can't show your feelings, you can't really express how you feel to your friends and to your peers because they'll ridicule you. And that's where your parents, and in my case, if I ever have my feelings to express, I either go to my parents or to my closer girlfriends. Girls, female teenagers to be exact, have no qualms with talking about their feelings if you know them well enough. I have several friends who I can talk to my feelings about, but none of them are my guy friends. I'll talk to my parents or my girlfriends, but not my guy friends. Because when you talk to your guy friends, they label you as gay, they write it off, they don't even try to help. Most times they don't listen. And that's a sad truth about how most of us interact. And I believe it's based to, if you start to hear about your best friend's emotional trouble, you're going to start thinking about your own emotional trouble. And when that happens, then everybody's unhappy. And that's one of the biggest fears of teens is, or of me anyway, it's being unhappy with who you are. But that is a different subject and will come later. One of the other subjects is, what makes you angry? What makes you angry? How do you get this way? There's few things that can actually make me angry. I can be frustrated easily by tests, difficult problems, annoying friends, annoying people that aren't my friends. But there are very few ways to make me angry, but the same can't be said for some teens. Some teen boys, especially the ones who feel like they have the most to prove, have problems with anger because they're looking for a fight. They want to be angry because they believe that if they're angry, they will be masculine, they'll be men, and people won't mess with them. It's not exactly true. I tend to be more of a nicer person. I try not to ever be angry at people unless an extreme situation occurs. The only times I'm ever angry is if myself or my friends are treated badly. And one of my personal morals is, no matter who it is, if I ever see a girl or a woman treated badly, that will always make me angry, because you are not a man if you treat a woman with disrespect. But, like I said, most teens, or I can't even say most because I'm not quite sure, but some teens, they're out looking for a fight and they'll get angry easily. Other teens are more laid back, they don't want to fight, and they don't want to be angry. If someone ever tries to get me riled up into fight, I usually talk my way down, tell them it's not worth to fight. It doesn't matter if you fight, everybody loses. One person's in trouble and one person's hurt. And neither person can feel good about themselves after that. Back to the subject of what teens are scared of and afraid of, especially from 14 to 17, a huge issue is fitting in. Everything we do is based around trying to fit in, whether we know it or not. And then there's people who try not to fit in. We want to stand out. We want to be our own unique person, and that has started all the rage of, I'm a rebel, I don't want to be like anybody else, and most people don't find that to be a good quality, because sometimes it can be good to be like everybody else. Sometimes if you're a rebel, you put a kink in how things work. You can be a rebel, but if you do it in a way that impacts everyone around you, you're more of an annoying rebel than anything else. But most teens are scared of how people see them. That is also portrayed in the media. In the media, teens are always overly interested in how others judge them, judge their appearance and their personalities. I myself have had troubles with people judging me, and not because they judge me and I don't like what they say, but because I'm afraid they will judge me, even though they aren't. I am one of those guys who has a constant battle with their hair every single day to try and get it to look just right before I even leave my house, for fear that if it sticks up or looks wrong in any way, someone will make a comment. I can pretty much go to school with a mohawk and no one will notice. The next topic is something that me and most of my friends completely ignore, and that is the guy code. The guy code seems to be an endless amount of rules that no one follows. The only guy code rule I can ever remember is you're not supposed to date a girl that your best friend dated without asking first. I guess this can be unfair, especially in my position, because one of my best friend's ex-girlfriend is now one of my best friends. And it's very difficult in these situations because if the guy code says you're not supposed to date them, and you feel like you have to follow the guy code, your fear of breaking it will keep you from dating who you want to. Which, one of the only ways that teens find comfort is finding someone to date. Which is difficult to understand because you would think a teen would feel comfortable with their parents or their friends. In my experience, there's a level further when you find someone to date. You may not love them, you may not want to marry them and spend the rest of your life with them, but just having someone who you can rely on them to, even at school where your parents can't really help you get through the day, it means a lot to most teens, especially teen guys. In all the media, we're tough guys, we break up, we're not even unhappy, we're chasing some other girl the next 10 minutes. That's not how it works. I have a friend who is considered by many to go through girls like he goes through toilet paper. Way too fast. He seemed to date a different girl every single week. But there are those rare times when he would date someone for 2 months, 3 months, a year, and I've never seen him more torn up than when he breaks up with a long-term relationship. He may be able to get a different girlfriend every year, or every week, but since that's every week, he doesn't get attached to them. If he has a long-term relationship, when it ends, I can tell it stings him. And guys my age may not show that, but when a relationship ends, we usually do care. Girls think that we're just senseless pigs who, second the relationship ends, we're looking for a new one. Usually we aren't. When a relationship ends, it does impact us. But as I said before, we're conditioned to not show our emotions as much as we should. The next topic is, have I ever been discriminated against? And my answer is yes, not because of my gender or my race, but actually because of my personal preferences. I take art class at my school, but I'm also a football player. And in media, and you don't usually hear of a football player who takes an art class, because in my school I've noticed art is kind of considered for those people who don't exactly fit in. They kind of stick out, and they're considered a little bit outcast. And I could tell from one of the first days of art, I walked into the classroom wearing my jersey from football. The looks I received from some of my classmates told me just enough to know that just because I was a football player, they already didn't like me. But within a week, after showing them how I actually am, most of the people in that class came to like me because I'm not a stereotypical football player. We're not all dumb, we're not all mean, we're not all jerks, we're not all jocks. Jocks is a pretty undescriptive term, if you ask me. A jock is just someone who plays football or a bunch of sports. To me, a jock is someone who plays sports, but they have no compassion for the people beside their sports. Me, I play football, but I still talk with my friends. I still hang out with my friends. I don't base my friend group on any sort of clique system. My friend group has nerds, jocks, gamers. We're all one of each. I may be a horribly nerdy person. I love myself some video games, but I will also go out, play football, hang out with my friends, draw, or in my case, I love to write. And the big one is how are teens portrayed in the media? The media takes a very harsh and brazen look at teens. All we do is rebel, all we do is get in trouble, all we do is do things we shouldn't. And that's not always true. Like I said before, for some teens, that's what they want to do. For others, they don't. For some teens, their way of rebelling is playing a sport, learning how to play an instrument, doing in my case, art class. I may not rebel by doing art classes, but they're creative outlets for how you feel. And they're usually slightly difficult, because in the media, teens aren't really portrayed as using these outlets. They're portrayed as just venting all their frustrations to whoever's around them, and usually to their parents. Now, it is a difficult yet common thing for teens to take their anger out on their parents. It happens often. It's not pretty. Teens will blame their parents for problems they have because they don't know who else to deal with. And mostly, the teens can fix their problems by just confronting them. A couple of the smaller topics are sports. Sports at my school are fairly straightforward. You can pick the sport you like, and most of the sports people get along. We don't hate the other sports, we don't make fun of them. Like I said, people kind of discriminate against football players because we're considered to be the big, dumb, lumbering jerks. Not all true. I have a bunch of friends who are football players who are also very good people. Our coaches once gave us really good advice. It said, be a good person, be a good student, and being a good athlete will follow. And I took that advice somewhat to heart, because nobody's perfect. Least of all me. But I tried to take that to heart, and I try and be a good person, I try to be a good student, and I think, and like I said, if you do all of those, being a good athlete will come naturally. And another big topic among teens, teen boys especially from 14 to 17, is puberty. The least fun of all topics, if you ask me. Most boys are going through a period of extreme and fairly annoying change. You grow hair where you don't want it, you grow hair where you do want it, you start to smell, you get bigger and clumsier. When I was somewhat in the middle of puberty, I found for a week I had zero balance. I leaned too far one way and I went to the floor. Your body adjusts, you have to adjust with it, and mindsets are difficult. Especially with, in gym class, have guys to my right who have a full beard, and I have my friend to my left who hasn't hit puberty yet. I hit puberty fairly early. It kind of hit me like a brick wall, as it does some. Others it goes through slowly. But puberty adds a lot of stress and annoyance to daily activities. As your body changes, you become clumsy. There's a lot of things you could do and a lot of things you couldn't do. I can't make my voice go very high anymore because it just decides not to work after a while. School in general is a fairly broad topic. But for me, school it's where I can meet my friends, but it's also a place to be slightly wary of. School isn't perfect. There's always going to be someone there who's having a bad day, and they feel like the world's out to get them, and no matter what you do, they're just going to be mad. I figured out unless one of these people is a close friend of mine, it's usually a good idea to just try and avoid them. If they're out to have a bad day and they won't let anybody cheer them up, let them have their bad day. Games. It was a subject at the bottom. Video games are a big part of today's culture. Most kids, every time a new video game comes out, they freak out. I had friends who wouldn't stop talking about the new Grand Theft Auto game for almost 2 weeks after it came out. Not all of my friends like the same games. We all have different things we like, though. We all have different things, or we all have some things that we agree that we all want to get together and play. My school has actually a video game club. I went to it once or twice, but was unable to do recently due to extracurricular activities that I do otherwise. But I noticed a lot of the people who go there are also people considered to be social rejects. I don't see them that way because I realize these people are people who share my interests. These are people who like video games, and so do I, and so do most of my friends. Just because some people reject them doesn't mean everybody has to, and that's kind of brings me into the next subject, is dating. Again, dating is a terribly awkward time for almost every boy. Unless you're that Mr. Popular who everybody wants to date, and that's one person, and from the people I've met who are like that, they don't like it. They may be Mr. Popular, everyone may want to date them, but they're never really happy. They always think they have to do better, and they're always looking for something more. And it's a terrible way to live your life, if you ask me. Peer pressure is the next subject, and peer pressure is evident, and to me, I believe it's something I'm good at avoiding. There is drug activity, gang activity in almost every school. Mine is not an exception. I know I have friends who do drugs, and I have friends who never would even think about it. I've been exposed to drugs at school before, I've never done them. I've never had an interest, and I've never wanted to. If anyone has ever offered me anything, I always tell them, no, I'm not interested, and that's why I believe I'm good at resisting peer pressure. Although others aren't, and peer pressure claims many people. Peer pressure becomes too much for them, and they end up doing something they'll regret. I have many friends like this. Too many to be good. Friendship is a very, very good topic to talk about. Your friends are, at some point through your high school, closer than your family. Because if you're having troubles at home, your friends are where you can turn to. I have a couple friends who are having a lot of trouble at home. They turn to me, they turn to our other friends, and we all help each other out. Me and all of my friends, we're brothers and sisters from different parents. There's almost nothing that could stop me from going to help my friends if they need it. I would gladly take a bullet for just about any of my friends, no matter what the consequences. But usually death. Yeah, getting shot's not the easy one. The next topic is masculinity. Now, me and all my friends have a kind of funny take on masculinity. My friend had a very funny quote in which, for one of our school incentives, he was in choir, and they had him dress up in a tutu and dance around on the stage while everyone sang the Nutcracker for our Christmas special. After the show, for which I was doing stage crew and the light board for, he came up to me and said, "I'm very comfortable with my masculinity." And then he took a pause and said, "or lack thereof." After all the laughing was done, I realized it's very true. I always say it takes a real man to wear pink, because if you're comfortable with your masculinity, you're comfortable with not having masculinity, it doesn't really matter. As long as you're comfortable and people see that you are, they'll understand. Social media is more of a difficult topic for me to use because of all my friends who are Facebook crazed, I've never really liked Facebook. I tend not to use mine. Yeah, my parents use their Facebook way more than I do. Actually, my grandfather uses Facebook more than I do. If that's hard for some parents to believe, but it's true. Not all of us are completely glued to our social media. I can barely stand being on it for 20 minutes. But then again, there's people who, I'll see them check their phone every 15 seconds to see if someone liked their photo. That's what drives me insane. And the biggest topic ever talked about in most schools is bullying. Bullying is the brand new worry of America. It's my son or daughter's being bullied, they're having a horrible time in school, make it stop. And the difficult part is you can't just stop bullying. There's always going to be bullies, there always will be, there always was. And it's because there's those people who, if they're not secure with themselves, they become insecure with others. And if you aren't secure with yourself, and you see someone who also isn't secure with themselves, they take action on that. They make other people more insecure to make themselves feel secure. I have never really been friends with a bully, but I have kind of gleaned how they think. I don't know if I'm exactly right, but bullies have a tendency to blame their personal problems on everybody around them. And in the media, bullies, you always see them, they find whoever's the nerd, or the goth kid, or the emo kid, they find them and they pick on them, and recently it's become a problem, because those kids, if they already have a low self-esteem, and a bully keeps breaking it down, it leads to drastic things. And suicide is a topic I don't take lightly. I have a very serious problem with suicide. Even though I don't know anyone who's commit suicide, I have a couple friends who have tried. And it's kind of messed with me on a very deep level that mentioning suicide around me can put me in a fairly bad mood very quickly. And I think it's completely wrong that any bully can bully someone to the point where they take their own life. Bullying, it needs to be stopped, but it's a catch-22. It can't. The more we try to get rid of it, the worse it becomes. Because everyone tells their kid to just ignore them, or to tell a teacher, in which most teachers, as horrible as it sounds, can't really do anything. You can give a bully a detention, but it just makes them mad, because if a bully gets a detention, they know that one of the kids that they bullied told on them, in which case it makes them angrier and harder on the kids, or teens in our case. Bullying isn't that much of an issue at my school, so that I've seen. Me and my friends will joke around, we insult each other, we have a good time. And there's a line, and the line gets crossed every now and then, but because we're friends, we can shake it off. When the line's crossed and it can't be shaken off, that's when things become problematic. And that is difficult for kids to cope with, especially teens. And bullying is always talked about, but I myself have never really been bullied. I attribute probably walking around with a football jersey for a while. No one wants to mess with a football player because you have the support of up to 22 people behind you. And that's why I think a good way to avoid being bullied is to make a group of friends who you like. Stay with them, talk to them, and don't worry about anybody else. If someone takes interest in your group and they want to join, they'll voice their opinions, or you'll see them doing things that you share common interests. My friend made a good point today. He said, do what you love, and your friends will come to you. You'll find friends by doing what you like. And I see it happen every day. I'm being myself, and people who also, when being themselves, do things similar to me, we find each other and we become friends. And that's how I got most of my friends that I have today. And out of all of these topics, they all condense into just one. And it's, how do teens cope with being teens? The answer is, we all do it in different ways. Some of us write, some of us draw, some of us play football. We each have ways, and those are those creative outlets. The media doesn't quite grasp this, and they portray us as not really being able to deal with it. We're all over dramatic, and every little thing causes us to go off on some tangent or another. Well, that may be true in the 90210. It's not true for everywhere else. I mean, yeah, there's always going to be peer pressure, there's always going to be problems, but if you have good friends and a good head about you, and you think through what you do, you can avoid problems, and you can survive high school pretty well. That's how I made it through the first half of my first year. It's how I plan on making it through the next 3. It takes a lot to be a freshman, but it takes more to not pick on the next ones. Kind of fun quote from my football coach. Again, I'd like to thank my stepmother for giving me the prompt for this, and I hope this video helps other guys like me who they may have problems, but they'll figure out ways to fix them.